All right, we can go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. My name is Lexi Beer. I'm the Director of Outreach here at KGI. And happy to join, and I'll help answer your questions. I'll monitor the chat throughout, so feel free to pop your questions in there. And then we'll save some time at the end as well. But I really would like to introduce Dr. Fortini. She is the Program Director for our MS in Human Genetics and Genomic Data Analytics, and we'll be talking about that program today. And so definitely let us know if you have questions either for Dr. Fortini about the program, or I'm happy to help if it's about admissions and other opportunities at KGI. So thanks so much again for joining, and I'll give it over to you, Dr. Fortini.
Hey. All right, thank you everyone. Sorry, I was finding my Zoom screen. It was being a little different than usual today. Thank you everyone for joining. Can everyone see the slides all right? Yes, okay. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about careers in genomics, and specifically in careers in human genomics, and the role that they play in the clinical genomics industry and precision medicine. Okay, so hopefully you're on this call because you are interested in either personalized or precision medicine, drug development, perhaps using genomics as the starting point. Also the development of new genetic or genomic tests. Perhaps you've had some direct-to-consumer tests like a 23andMe panel. But we also have tests that are specifically designed to give medical information, and they meet a little bit different standard than those tests that are used for just entertainment purposes or understanding your family ancestry. Also in that, now that we have all this data, if you're interested in using this data in general, the big conglomeration of it to advance health. So these were the things we were thinking about when we built the MSGDA program several years ago. And so our graduates have gone on to a variety of interesting careers, and these careers continue to get more varied as time has gone on, just because genomic medicine has started to be used in so many more fields. So let's talk about a few of those career options. So the first is being a clinical variant scientist or variant curator. And in the MSGDA program, that is what about half of our graduates have chosen to do after they finish their degree. And this is someone who works in either a hospital setting or for a genetic testing company that does clinical testing and that interprets one particular patient's information and makes a diagnosis or tries to explain the features that we see in that patient. And so two different ways that this happens. You can either work for the hospital system itself. So if there's a big research hospital that has its own genomics core, or they have their own precision medicine center, they're probably going to be doing the sequencing in-house. So you might work in a team that reviews patient records, decides what kind of genetic testing to give that patient, and then sees the data and maybe even follows along as the care for that patient continues. The other option is that you could be working at a company that has samples mailed to the company. And so you might get a sample from one day from one state, from somewhere else in the United States the next day, around the world, but you probably would be a specialist on one type of gene set or one type of disease state that you would always be interpreting patients that had one of the big features of this job was that you could work at home in your pajamas. Now, a lot of us have figured out we can do a big percentage of our job at home in our pajamas, but this is not going I'm sorry about that, everyone. Our internet is being a little unstable on campus today. So where was I? Let me share my screen here again. Okay. Let's try this again. I'm so sorry. Are we on the correct slide? Yes. Okay. And so as I was saying, you can do this job either remote or in a hospital setting. And so it does give you flexibility. And this is a job that is very sought after right now in medicine. So there are lots of job opportunities and a desire to have people that know how to do this. And so this is taking patient data, matching up the mutations to what we see in the patient. Now, a sort of related job that is a bit different is to be the genomic data analyst. And in this case, you might be more focused on, let's say, some sort of disease, like if you really want to understand the genomics of diabetes, or you wanted to understand the genomics of heart disease. And so you would work with sets of data, multiple patients, to try to make fundamental discoveries about the disease itself by looking at that data. So not so much looking person by person, but more as a small group of patients' data sets together. And so you would often do this as either working for a research group at a university or a hospital, or you could work for a biotech company or a pharmaceutical company that was trying to develop products in that space. And so a lot of drug development these days is for precision therapies. So they have huge data sets of individuals that might have a condition they're trying to come up with a better treatment for. And then you would analyze this patient data to try to suggest drug targets, or even to suggest the efficacy of known drugs in these patient groups. And so it's a lot of the same skills and the same knowledge base, but it's just a different emphasis on the final product. You could also work for a sequencing company that sells interpretation as an add-on service. So all of the companies like QIAGEN and GeneWiz and Illumina, you know, they always have one price if you just want the sequencing data to come back, but for a few $100s more, they could interpret everything for you. And so you would be doing whatever the investigator wanted to do with the data and trying to make those discoveries. And I've talked to people who do this, they actually think it's really fun because you never know what's going to land in your inbox. You can do a deep dive into one thing, you know, write up your report, mail it away, and the next week you're working on something totally different because it's just a contract basis. And so again, this is like using the data set to make the fundamental discovery about the biology. Of course, that brings up the concept of just being an academic researcher. So all academic research groups are using genomics to do really exciting things. And people like me, we're not trained in any of this. So we need to hire someone who can do all of this data analysis for us. And so if you're interested, especially in a small group type setting where you would work very closely with a project for many years and kind of follow it start to finish, there are lots of opportunities working in an academic setting where you might focus on one particular disease state or one particular protein or gene even, and then be involved in like every stage of the research for many years. And so this again would be more taking the data and making these insights about how the biology or the cell works. And the last job I wanted to highlight was just the emerging careers. So there are always new companies starting that are trying to get on the genomics bandwagon. All of the genetic ancestry companies are launching new products. And so they need scientists to help analyze their data in new and interesting ways so they can put out a fun report to send to the people that have done these testing kits. I will say they have the biggest database. Ancestry.com has the biggest repository of genetic information, not the National Institute of Health, not some research group. It is Ancestry.com because they've been collecting DNA data for decades. And so there are lots of people that consent to have their data used for research. And so there's a lot of really good science that actually goes on at these direct-to-consumer companies. There's also a large number of people now that weren't quite satisfied with what they got from the reports when they did 23andMe or something like that. And so there are companies that just reanalyze existing data to try to make different interpretations of it. The next one there is health and wellness consulting using genomics. For many years, we have always focused on people that are sick and trying to use genomics to explain it. But in the future, of course, and it's starting to happen now, we want to look at people that are healthy and use their genome to keep them healthy, right? Which is the health and wellness genomics. So how can you use data before someone has a condition to predict what's going to happen and to make an intervention before that comes to pass? And so there's a lot of research being done of how to analyze data when we're not trying to match, a mutation to a phenotype or what it would look like. And so that is an emerging career. We also have startup companies, and the biggest field right now is in gene therapy. We do have some approved gene therapies now, and there are so many more in the pipeline, thanks to CRISPR and some even more advanced technologies for changing the genome. There is a lot of hot science trying to find the correct ethical and effective way to do genome editing. And so all of these companies need genome analysts to look at their data and to see what changes were made, whether they're going to have off-target effects, what these effects would be on a patient. And so the list of careers that you could do that involve genetics or genomics is growing rapidly. And I will say, for a different reason, yesterday I just went to Indeed.com and typed in the keyword genetics, and 75,000 jobs came up. So there are plenty of things to do in the genetics and genomics space. So the real question is, how do you get one of these jobs? And so we have several programs at KGI that are really focused on things in the genomic space and in clinical genetics. And so I will be talking about one of those programs, MSGDA, but feel free to explore our website on our other programs that have a genetic component, like our genetic counseling degree. So what is MSGDA? Well, it's a long title, and I guess I should add it on this slide too. It's the Master of Science in Human Genetics and Genomic Data Analytics. And the first part is very important because it is a foundation in human genetics. How does the human genome work? How do genes work? How do our genetics differ than maybe, plants or Drosophila, which are fruit flies, things that were studied for decades. Now we can study what's going on in humans, and it's of course more complicated. So you have to really understand how that works. Then we add on to that the cutting edge courses in the applied life sciences that KGI has been known for many years. So the GDA program is just 5 years old, but we started from a great foundation of existing programs that have put people into the bioscience industry for years. And then on top of that, we added the innovative genomics curriculum. Those are the classes just for the GDA program that were specifically made to give you the skills that you would need to have one of these jobs. And some of them are on the data analytics side, and some of them are on the genomic side, but they really cover all of the types of information that you need to know, no matter which way you decide to take your career. In addition to what we teach, of course, a big part of it is who you are meeting while you're a student, because we want you to start building that network even before you're out in the working world. And the sister program to our genomic data analytics program is our genetic counseling program. And so if you're working at one of these clinical genomics companies, you are going to be interacting with genetic counselors. They're the people that take the information and deliver it to patients. And so you already, when you graduate, will know 40 of them because you have met them when you were in your classes together. And so it's already, we only have a few classes of alumni out there, but it's so fun to hear when they actually run into each other, and sometimes Okay, I apologize, everyone. My computer really is having a hard time with today. I am going to turn my camera off, so hopefully as I'm talking, I won't lose things again, but hopefully maybe KGI admissions and Lexi was able to answer some questions while I was gone. All right. I'm going to close everything except what I am talking about. Okay, can someone remind me what I was saying right before I disappeared? Oh, working with genetic counselors. Perfect. Thank you very much, Jack. So yes, so one of the great features of the GDA program is the who you're doing your classes with. And so in some of your first year classes, you will be meeting the genetic counseling students, and they are going to be your connections throughout your career, because genetic counselors work with all of the data that genomic data analysts produce and deliver it to patients. The other side are the applied life science students. We have our Master of Business in Science for people who want to go into more like management business roles. We also have translational medicine programs. And so through some of the classes that are shared with those programs, you will also meet people who might be working at these companies. And you also get connected to KGI alumni that maybe they were a business type person, but they work now for one of these clinical genomics companies in their marketing office or something like that. So we have tons of connections, even if it's not someone who previously was a genomic data analytics student. And an important thing is that because this industry is so cutting edge, there's still a lot of collaboration and a lot of connection to people at these small companies that you'll be working with other genetic counselors, other data analysts, but also perhaps other business people or basic scientists. Okay, so what does the program look like? Well, it is a 21-month program, which basically means 2 years of academic work with a summer in between. The first year is, oh, did I not share my screen? I'm sorry, I forgot that step. Everyone see now?
It's working on coming up right now.
Oh, screen sharing has stopped as the screen. Okay, let me try this again.
While you work on that, we actually had a question that I think is a little bit related to what you were just talking about. And Ace, sorry if you want to retype it if I get this wrong, but it was kind of about what the differences are or similarities between this program and a genetic counseling program.
That is a great question, and Zoom is crashing my PowerPoint every time I share the screen. Which is not fun. But so in the first year, we do have basic science courses. And so that was kind of what I was trying to show. Maybe I will drop this in and Lexi can try just to do the slides for me really quick. But we do have our basic genetics courses in the first year are shared between both programs because it is the same information. Just a different sort of use and purpose of that. And so the human molecular genetics, which I teach, human genomics, the clinical cancer genomics, medical genetics, and biochemical genetics are all taken by both programs, our genetic counselors and our GDA students. The difference in the genetic counseling program in the first year is that they would take a lot of counseling skills classes starting in their first semester to really understand like how to talk to patients, how to deal with the issues that patients would be going through if they had a genetic diagnosis, what it means for their family. And at that same time, GDA students would be taking more of the bioinformatics, computer science type courses. And so the same science basis helps inform what's going to happen for both groups, but then the application of it is different. Okay, so I see slides. So I believe we're on slide 9.
Is it displaying okay?
I can see it.
Okay.
Other people can see it.
Here?
Next slide.
Okay.
All right, perfect. So this is the curriculum. So, and that's a perfect question to start talking about the difference. So everything in the red hexagon is shared between the genetic counseling program and the genomic data analytic program. That is the core basis in our scientific understanding of genetics and genomics. And the teal hexagon are our applied life science courses. So these might be specific to the GDA program. One of them is Introduction to Bioscience Industry, where you kind of learn how the clinical and biotech industry actually works and makes money and what are the incentives, for example. Then we also have Biostats, which is a course taken by lots of different programs. So that's a great way to make friends from outside of the genetics program because it is one of those shared courses. And we have a transcriptomics course, which is more computer programming in the language R. We have clinical trial design, which helps understand how this kind of genomic data is now being used to get better drugs to market. We have papers in applied medicine, an ethics course, and pharmacogenomics. So those are courses that are shared between multiple programs. I want to jump ahead just a little bit to the purple hexagon. So purple is my favorite color. So the GDA specific courses are in the purple hexagon. And 2 of those actually are in the first year. The first one there is Genomics Lab. So while the genetic counselors and the GDA students all take human genomics with me in the spring, the GDA students will have a separate add-on course where we do some actual DNA sequencing in our lab of cancer cells, and we use that to find structural variants. We also have some bioinformatics labs where we take existing sequencing data from a family trio, and we go all the way from the raw data to interpreting all of the variants in that family trio and which of the variants might be responsible for an illness in the son. And so that is kind of the add-on that helps take the concepts in class into more practical terms. The other course during the first year that is specifically made for the GDA program, but is now shared with other programs, is the programming for the biosciences course that's taught in Python. And so that is our intro programming for people who have never had any before. So if you've never done any computer science courses, you're a little bit scared, how will I ever do any of this bioinformatics? We have a course that's taught by Dr. Zach Dodds. He also teaches freshman programming at Harvey Mudd College. He's very good at taking people from absolute starting from zero up to being ready to do some data analysis in 1 semester. And so that is the first year in a nutshell. So it's a lot of courses that are shared with other programs, but we're putting the best combination of them together. Then we do have a summer internship where everyone goes off and does a project in the real world and then comes back for the second year. And that's when we really add those really specific courses in the GDA curriculum. And those are the other ones in the purple hexagon. We have our DNA sequencing and variant analysis class, and that is the class that will help you if you want to become that clinical variant scientist or the data curator. So we teach all of the different types of variants that are analyzed for either germline or cancer, whether it's single nucleotide variants or structural variants or copy number variants. And so that gives you that insight into that career pathway. We also have a class called Genomic Data Visualization and Management. This is a class taught in Python, but it does help you understand how to work professionally with data and all these huge data sets. Of course, we can't look at it. These are hundreds of gigabases in some of the files. So understanding how you visualize the data to make interesting conclusions. We have another class called Genomic Knowledge Translation, and that is just a fancy way to say communications. It's in our spring semester of our second year. And so after we've done all of this knowledge gathering, we want you to be able to explain it to people from different backgrounds and different professions. So you learn how to write blog posts about rare diseases, or we have our poster presentation on a rare disease, or doing little elevator pitches of your capstone. So we work on those kind of things in that class. And the last one on that list is functional genomics, which is, I always joke, putting the fun in genomics. And that is sort of the cutting edge research style genomics that might not be ready for the clinic yet, but it's what's coming, and it's how we understand how the genome works. So those are all the required courses. So everything in red, teal, or purple is taken by everyone in the cohort. In their second year, however, we do have concentration. So you get to select electives that you're interested in to either have a clinical decision support concentration, clinical trial design, or assay development. In the second year, you also spend 6 units a semester, or about 18 hours a week, on your capstone project. So let's talk a bit about that. So next slide, please. So these are the 3 concentrations. Our most popular has been clinical decision support historically. Those are for people who really want to connect patient data to what's going on in the genome. And so an example of the an example of classes that you could take for that would be the human embryology class and prenatal diagnosis. And that is a course that is housed in our genetic counseling program. It's not required for GDA students, but it's open to GDA students. We also have a very popular elective this year in microbiomics and pathogen genomics, because that's sort of a big thing in the world right now. Molecular basis of disease, advanced in vitro diagnostics, and then medical terminology has also been very popular as an elective, because when you work with patient files, you start learning that you have to take all of the words that the doctors write into the electronic healthcare record and turn that into phenotypes in your head. And so our students have found that class to be very helpful. There are a few others. You can find the full list of the eligible classes on our website, but these are just some of the favorites. The next most popular of our concentrations is our clinical trial design concentration. These are for people who want to work in biotech or drug discovery, pharmaceutical industry. And so examples of electives you could take would be genetic engineering. We have our pharmaceutical discovery and development series, biotechnology-based therapeutics, biomarker and drug discovery. Again, these are existing courses at KGI that were really built on the expertise in that biotech connection. And so with our genetic sort of mindset, we bring a lot to those classes and can use it for furthering a career in clinical trial design or even clinical drug development. And the last concentration is for our entrepreneurs, and that would be our assay development track. If you have an idea for the next great clinical test, we have, again, our genetic engineering class, medical diagnostics, and advanced in vitro diagnostics, adding in more of the data science courses like machine learning and life science, because a lot of assay development is bioinformatic manipulation of the data. Not on this list, we have like FDA food and drug law, so you can understand how something could go from an idea to something that can actually be used in patients. So this is, again, another exciting way you could take the genomic knowledge and make an exciting product that might be useful to patients. So I see a question and the 2 questions in the chat about flexibility. So the first year curriculum is not very flexible, but the second year curriculum is. So if you have a course, KGI is always adding new courses. So if you think it would fit into one of the concentrations, you can definitely bring it to the program leadership and we can vote on whether we should add it. You can always submit a petition if you want to make your own pathway. I think the most important thing is to just have a coherent reason about how these classes stack up into something that's going to be useful for your career. But yes, you can definitely take different courses. You can also, if you're doing well, you don't have to only take 6 credit hours of concentration. You can take electives in the second year if you are, have extra time and are really interested in a particular topic. Okay, next slide. All right, so another big portion of our education at KGI is experiential. We don't just want to lecture at you in a classroom. In fact, we don't lecture very much in the traditional sense. We do a lot of active team-based learning, but we do want you to get out there and to see what's going on at one of our educational partners, so you can really develop the skills that are going to get you a fantastic job. So on this screen, we have the logos of some of the companies that our students have done either an internship or a capstone project at. We have several students who've been at Fabric Genomics. We've had people at St. Jude Children's Hospital, I think every year, people at Kylos Genetics, the Scripps Research Institute, Merck. So you can see the projects have spanned from academic labs to research hospitals to startup companies like Immucor. The goal when you do your summer internship would be to really get started on your project and get a deep dive of the data and really build some skills in person. And then if you continue at that same project for your capstone in your second year, when you graduate, you'll have both a 2-year degree and 1 year of work experience. And so that's what we really love to happen. However, if you get started on your internship and you end up finding something else that's even more exciting, or maybe it didn't work out, or maybe the site doesn't have opportunity for a student all year long, it is possible to change projects. And so you could do one thing in your internship and you could do a different project in your capstone. And that, of course, also has benefits of having more people that could serve as references for you. So it works out either way. The one exciting thing I'll say different than genetic counseling is these internships in the summer are paid. And so our students are able to afford to live in the city where they're working, or you could be doing a remote project. So one thing that COVID has taught us is that it is possible to do remote internships. So many of the internships we do during the summer are remote. All right, next slide. So these are just some examples of titles from capstone projects over the years. We have our 3rd cohort graduating this year, and we just had their poster session yesterday. I was so excited. For the first time ever, we got to have posters in real life and have snacks and mingle and talk about the research. But we've been doing amazing projects for all 3 years of our graduates. So on the top, we have one project that was done in collaboration with the Rare Genomics Institute. And the Rare Genomics Institute is a group of genomics professionals who volunteer their time pro bono to analyze, reanalyze the data of people with rare diseases who had whole genome sequencing in the past, and it didn't find the answer to their condition. But of course, we learn new things every day. So they reanalyze the data looking for an explanation every few years. And so it's a very exciting organization because they have sequencing data for these rare disease patients that just want an answer. But of course, people who have been on this diagnostic odyssey, they have hundreds of pages of medical records. And they've been to probably see dozens of different specialists. And it's not in a format that you can just search in order to find the keyword search that you would put into our AI algorithms that help us interpret genetic data. So one of our students, Eric, wrote a natural language processing, which is a machine learning script that could take phenotype terms out of PDFs. So we didn't have to recode all of this data to send it right into their analysis platform. And this project was a huge hit. And they were, all of the pro bono analysts were excited because that speeds up their ability to help more people. We also had a person that was doing PacBio sequencing for CEBPA mutations, which is a cancer mutation. And this was at LabCorp that they wanted to start getting long read sequencing into their clinical testing. And so she spent a whole year working on PacBio sequencing. We had this year a great research project on using AI sensitivity for looking for pathogenic variants in population health and newborn screening. So these are existing data sets now that we know the answer because we've now actually been sequencing infants for a while. And so testing different AI products to see how well they are, how good they are at finding the pathogenic variant compared to when it all had to be done by hand by a scientist. I won't read all the others, but we have lots of different projects every year, and there is a lot of help by our career services team to match people up with internships that match their career interest. So by the time you graduate, you can put together a project that really speaks to what you're interested in and what you want to do in your future career. All right, next slide. Okay, so I keep talking about our alumni, and right now we can still fit them all on one screen, but we're about to have 12 more alums join the working world in a few weeks. As I said at the very onset, we have about half of our students go on to work as a variant scientist at either a company or a hospital setting. So we have some that work at children's hospitals. We have some work at like Natera and Tempus. Tempus Labs, they specialize in cancer interpretation. So she is getting her medical doctor at St. George, and I'm so excited because we need more doctors that understand genomics. We also have a student who decided to get a PhD in bioinformatics after going through MSGDA, and she's at UCSF. And we had one student who worked at St. Jude Children's Hospital for summer, and she found that as she followed around all the practitioners, the person she most identified with was one of their nurse practitioner genomic specialists. And so she's getting her nursing degree right now in order to become a nurse practitioner that's going to work in genomic medicine. So you can take the GDA degree in a lot of different directions. All right, next slide. So for all of you on this call, hopefully you're considering applying, but we do have an experience that could help you really understand if this is the career for you. And that's our clinical genetics and bioinformatics summer program. We have 2 weeks. We're still accepting applications. So it's not a very complicated application. So if you're interested, you can start filling it out right now. We have the last week of June and the second week of July are our 2 sessions. Each session is just 1 week, but it's taught by myself and our program director for genetic counseling. And we spend the week following a diagnostic odyssey. And so we start with just some gene sequencing, then we do some gene panel testing, and then we get confusing results and we do whole genome sequencing. At the whole time we're talking about the data, we're also hearing about what's happening with the family and how the genetic counselors are interacting with the family and the kind of decisions that they make. And we have some patient advocates come and talk about their experiences going through this for real. We do some role plays. We really try in 1 week to show you everything there is to know about the clinical genomics space. We also have guests from industry that come to some of the lunch talks. So if you were more interested in like a biotech career, you'd be able to make some connections there. So please join us for the summer. We recently just decided to waive the fee, so it's free. So you should all do it. All right, so that was 1 second of typing in the turning on my camera. I'm so sorry, everyone. Okay. Any questions? And I think there was a question early on in the chat, but I lost it. So if someone could read out any questions that I missed, that would be fantastic.
The one that was much earlier before we got cut off, you answered about kind of the differences between genetic counseling and the GDA program. But if there's any that came through when we got cut off, I got cut off too,
Oh,
Dr.
I'm sorry.
Fortini. So if there's any that we missed, definitely feel free to retype them.
I do see a question about how many spots are on the summer program. So we still have a lot. So please apply, especially for the second week. We have plenty of openings. So get that in. Is the master's program entirely remote? No, at this point in time, it is entirely in person again. We are back to working in class. We do a lot of team-based learning. The internship can be remote. And parts of the second year, when you're working on your capstone, it really depends on where your site is. Some of our students work at the actual companies during the week, and some of them work 100% remotely and come to class. We do try to keep the classes in the second year just to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So if you are working at a site in, let's say, La Jolla and San Diego, then you'd be able to work there, you know, Friday, Saturday, Monday, and then come back for classes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But some of that depends also on the electives that are chosen. So it is in person. What is the lab work in the program like? So we actually only do one day of touching a pipette, and that is the day we do the cancer cell sequencing. We do have a long read minion sequencer. And so that is the day we prep DNA, we go ahead and load the sequencer, we get data, and we interpret that ourselves. But for the most part, it is just a data analysis program. We spend a lot of time understanding what is going on in patients, but you don't see the patients themselves. If you wanted the direct patient interaction, you would need to join our genetic counseling program. But yeah, it is not a lab type program. Now, some people in their internship have done a blended project where they do actually generate the data they analyze. But we really encourage people to make that a smaller part of their internship, just because it really, the focus is making these insights from the genomic data itself. Any other questions? Price of tuition. Do you want to take that one, Lexi? So
sure, I just need to grab the exact number on the website, but I will pull that up.
While she's pulling up the number, I will say we do have scholarships available. And in order to be considered for the scholarship, you just have to fill out the application. So we make all of our scholarship decisions based on the initial application package. So there's not a separate second step. So again, the earlier you apply, the more scholarship money that's still available, but we still have scholarships open for this fall. How big are the class sizes? That's a great question. So we have right now 13 students in our program in the first year and 12 students in the second year. So the classes that are combined with the genetic counselors, those are about 35 students. And then when we have some of the larger classes that serve a lot of programs, you know, would have maybe even 80, 90 students, but those are very few. So that I'm thinking of just the biostats course is like that. And the bioscience industry class also is big, but it's split into 3 sections. So for the most part, it's going to be in that 30 range in your first year. But then when you start getting into the GDA specific classes, then it's going to be, you know, about just 12 people or however big the cohort is. Jessica, how many scholarships are available? We don't have a certain number. We have criteria that we use for evaluating what scholarship level people qualify for. So it's not like there are a certain number predetermined by the at the beginning of the year. So it's based on the factors like GPA and experiences beforehand, and then we make those case-by-case decisions. Do most students have jobs lined up before graduation? Yes, so we have been getting lots of job offers in the last week. We have, I think, just a few students left looking for an opportunity, and most of the students have had several different job offers to choose from. We have in our past cohorts, so the class of 2020 and the 2021, 100% employment. Everybody has either found a job or moved on to another educational program within 6 months of graduation. Yes, there's lots of jobs out there right now. Okay, would the master's program in the future be an option for those working full-time? That is a good question. Right now, because we have really built around this immersive experience, not at this time. We do have financial aid for people because we know it is a big decision to take off not working for 21 months. Some of our students do work part-time during the program. And so they either work nights or weekends. But we do have, because it is an in-person program, we have lots of other things that happen during the week. We have clubs, we have a lot of student organizations, advocacy work. It is a full-time program right now, but I do share your interest that it should be available to people of different modalities. So again, keep checking back. Is it possible to do a joint degree, also doing master's in public health? That is a great question. We don't currently have a dual degree program set up for it, but there are tons of overlap between what we learn in the GDA program and what you would learn in public health. We do have the opportunity to take classes at Claremont Graduate University. So CGU is one of our sister colleges. They do have a public health program. And so you can, actually, I didn't talk about it, but if you wanted to select your concentration electives from CGU, that is an option. And so you could put together sort of a custom concentration with classes from CGU. So that would be very exciting. We also sometimes do interprofessional education events with the public health students. So you definitely have the opportunity to work with those students.
I popped a couple of links in the chat. So one has our tuition page with a little more detail. The second is just about funding your degree. So more information about the scholarships that we offer, financial aid, different opportunities you have. And then the final one is just the link to the MSGDA program on the website so you can read more. And just to note, we are accepting applications for fall 22. So the deadline is coming up on July 1st. You have a couple months. If it's something you're still thinking about for this coming fall, you haven't missed your window. Otherwise, our application will open again September 1st for 23. So if you're an undergrad or you're not quite ready for grad school this year, our app will open again September 1st if you want to apply for the future.
And speaking of funding again, during the internship between years 1 and 2, those are paid internships. And so that's one other way that makes it a little bit easier than some other programs where you're doing required experiences in the summer, but they're not paid. Any other questions? All right, well, I apologize again for the internet snafu. It's been making this afternoon very difficult in multiple meetings. I'm going to, at the very end, try to turn my camera on again, just so I can wave to you. But thank you so much for being patient. And if you have any other questions that come to you after we finish this, please don't hesitate to email us. Let's see how long this lasts. So it's great seeing you. And again, questions, let us know. Check out the website, lots of information on the website. And you can even read some of the stories about our students and some of the amazing things they have done in the last couple of years.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.